but a soft winter light still slipped through the tall stained glass windows. I stood at the front in white lace, my bouquet steady in my hands. Valentine was beside me, his fingers calm around mine. The string music faded like a breath. The pastor smiled, looking down the aisle. "And who gives this bride away?" People shifted. Cameras lifted. A few guests leaned forward, already smiling at what they believed would happen next. My stepfather, Nuach, placed his palms on the pew in the first row, as if he had practiced this moment for years. My mother, Rosemary, sat beside him. Her face was bright and proud, like she was watching a perfect plan land exactly on time. I took one slow breath. I did not look at Nuach. I turned my head, very slightly, toward the back of the church. "Before we answer," I said, voice even, "there is someone I need to introduce." The room didn't move. It didn't even blink. Rosemary's smile stayed on her mouth, but it stopped reaching her eyes. And in the last row, a man stood up. He rose like he wasn't sure he was allowed to take up space. He wore a simple dark suit, not expensive but clean and pressed. His hair was grayer than the photos I had seen. His hands stayed at his sides, open, not reaching. He didn't wave. He didn't smile wide. He just looked at me, like he was trying to prove to himself I was real. I watched him walk down the aisle at a careful pace. Every step was measured, as if the sound of his shoes on the floor was too loud. Guests turned. Heads followed him like a slow ripple through water. Valentine's grip tightened once, then softened again. That small change told me he was ready. Rosemary's hand went still on her lap. Her knuckles looked too white against the fabric of her dress. The man reached the front and stopped at a respectful distance from me. He looked at the pastor, then at Valentine, then back to me. I faced the room. "My name is Brightness," I said calmly. "Today is my wedding day, and this is Otto Hans." A few people inhaled sharply, like the name itself pushed air out of them. Otto Hans gave a small nod, not a bow, not a show, just a quiet hello. Then I added the sentence I had waited my whole life to say out loud. "He is my biological father." Silence dropped so fast it felt heavy. No one gasped loudly. No one screamed. The shock came out in smaller ways. A phone slipped from someone's hand and hit a pew with a dull tap. A woman near the middle whispered, "Oh my," and then stopped, like her own voice scared her. Nuach sat frozen. His eyes moved from me to Otto Hans like he was trying to solve a puzzle that didn't fit. Rosemary's face held steady for 1 second, but then a small muscle near her jaw jumped. The pastor blinked twice. He looked at me like he wanted to ask if this was a joke, but my tone made it impossible. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't angry. I was simply present. Otto Hans kept his hands visible. He didn't step closer unless I did. That mattered to me. It was one of the reasons he was here. I looked at the pastor and said, "You asked who gives me away." I paused long enough for the room to feel that question again. Then I said, "I give myself away, but I will not pretend I came from nowhere." And that was when I heard the first real sound from my mother. A thin laugh that didn't match her face. Rosemary stood up slowly, not in panic, in control. She lifted her chin, the way she always did when she wanted to make a story sound true. "Brightness," she said, voice sweet enough to fool strangers. "Honey, this is not the time." Her eyes moved to the guests, then to Kelly, Valentine's mother, like she was checking who was watching and how much power she still had. Kelly's lips parted, but she didn't speak. Her face looked stiff, like she was holding her breath. Rosemary took one small step into the aisle, like she wanted to pull the spotlight back. "This day is about love," she continued. "Not old confusion." Confusion. That word was chosen. It was meant to make everyone doubt me without her having to accuse me. I nodded once, slow. "You're right," I said. "This day is about love. That's why I'm telling the truth." A few guests shifted again. Someone in the back cleared their throat and quickly stopped. Rosemary's smile tightened. "I don't know what this is," she said. "But we can talk later, privately." I looked at her with a calm that didn't bend. "We have talked privately," I replied, "for years." And then I reached under my bouquet and took out a thin, cream folder. The folder was plain. No fancy cover. No drama. Just paper that carried weight. I held it at chest level so the front rows could see it. Not like a weapon, like a fact. Rosemary's eyes fixed on it. Her breath changed. That was the first crack. Nuach's brows pulled together. He looked at Rosemary, then at me, like he was waiting for her to explain. Valentine didn't move. but I felt him steady beside me. A quiet wall. I opened the folder. Inside this folder, I said, is a DNA test with a certified lab seal. I turned the first page showing the stamp and signature line. And this, I said, lifting the next page, is my original birth record request. What I received after I filed for it as an adult. Rosemary's mouth opened slightly. She closed it again. I did not look around for applause. I did not look for pity. I looked at my mother. You told me my father left because he didn't want me, I said, voice level. That was the story. Rosemary whispered, brightness. I raised a hand gently, not harsh, just firm. Let me finish. That was all I said. And she stopped. The church stayed silent enough to hear the soft hum of the lights above. Otto Hans cleared his throat once. It wasn't loud. It was careful. He looked at the pastor first, then the guests, like he understood he was standing in a place where emotions could explode if pushed. I'm not here to cause trouble, he said. I'm here because she invited me. He glanced at me, and his eyes softened. I didn't come to take anything, he continued. I came to witness something I was kept away from. He did not look at Rosemary with rage. He looked at her like someone looks at a door that was locked for a long time. Rosemary's shoulders lifted and fell, like she wanted to steady herself. Nuak's face turned pale. He stared at Otto Hans's mouth like he was listening for a lie. I turned another page. There's more, I said. Rosemary's voice dropped. Stop. I met her eyes. No, it wasn't sharp, it wasn't cruel, it was final. Then I said the part that made the room change again. This folder also includes a recording. No one likes the word recording. It turns air into ice. Rosemary's eyes widened for the first time. Real fear, the kind she could not shape into a smile. Nuak's head turned quickly toward her, like he was seeing her again for the first time. Valentine whispered, barely moving his lips, I'm here. I nodded slightly. I held up my phone. I'm not playing this to embarrass anyone, I said, loud enough for the room. I'm playing it because there are people here who were told to forget the truth. My gaze moved across a few faces I had known my whole life. My aunt, my godmother, 2 family friends. Their eyes dropped. They did not look confused, they looked guilty. Rosemary saw that too. She followed my eyes and stiffened. I pressed play. Her voice filled the church, clear and clean, recorded months ago. If you bring him back into this, you will ruin everything. Do you understand? Otto Hans is gone. He is supposed to be gone. A soft sound passed through the room, like someone swallowed wrong. I stopped the recording after that single piece. One sentence was enough. I put the phone down. Rosemary stood as still as stone. Then I said quietly, You didn't say he left. You said he was supposed to be gone. And the room finally understood this was not a misunderstanding. It was a decision. My aunt's hand shook as she gripped the edge of her pew. One of Rosemary's old friends stared at the floor like it could open and swallow her. Kelly, Valentine's mother, looked at Rosemary with a slow, careful disbelief. Her eyes were sharp, but her posture stayed respectful. She did not want to turn my wedding into a fight. But she also did not want a lie sitting in the front row like it belonged. Nuak's voice came out rough. Rosemary? He didn't sound angry. He sounded lost. Rosemary turned toward him with that same soft face she used in public. This is not what it sounds like, she said. But the room had already heard her own voice. Not my opinion, not Otto Hans's feelings, her exact words. I looked at Nuak with a gentleness I had practiced. This isn't about blaming you, I told him. You didn't build this lie, but you lived inside it. Nuak swallowed, his eyes shone, but he didn't cry. Then I turned toward the pastor. I'm not asking you to choose sides, I said. I'm asking you to let me tell the truth before I take my vows. The pastor nodded slowly, like he understood something holy was happening. Truth has a way of changing a room without raising its voice. Rosemary sat down again, slowly, her hands folded in her lap like she was trying to look peaceful. But her eyes kept darting. Not to me, to the guests, to see if anyone would rescue her. No one did. Some people looked away. Some looked at her like they were disappointed in themselves for staying quiet. Kelly finally spoke, soft but clear. Rosemary, she said, did you tell us his father was dead? Rosemary blinked. Kelly's voice stayed controlled. Because that's what you told me years ago. You said it was too painful to discuss. A hush moved again. Rosemary's lips pressed together. I didn't interrupt. I let the silence do its work. Kelly turned her gaze to Otto Hans. Sir, I'm sorry. Otto Hans gave a small nod. Thank you. No speech. No anger, just a quiet exchange that made my chest feel both heavy and light at once. Then Rosemary tried one more move. She looked at me and said, "Why today?" And that was when I answered with the truth that mattered most. "Because I'm done starting my life with a lie," I said, "and I refuse to carry your fear into my marriage." Noir stood up. His hands shook slightly, but his voice stayed low. "Rosemary," he said, "you told me he abandoned you." Rosemary's face tightened. "You told me he was violent," Noir continued. "You told me you were protecting her." Otto Hans did not argue. He did not shout, "That's not true." He simply looked at Noir and said, "I have never hit anyone in my life." Noir's eyes moved to Rosemary again. "And you told me," he said slowly, "that you had no way to reach him." Rosemary's throat worked like she couldn't swallow. I opened the folder again, pulled out one last page, and held it up. "This is a returned letter," I said, "postmarked 23 years ago." I didn't read the whole thing. I didn't need to. I pointed to the bold red stamp on the envelope. "Return to sender. Address blocked." Rosemary flinched like the stamp hit her. Noir stared. "Blocked?" My voice stayed soft. "She set it up. She made sure nothing reached him. Not letters, not calls." Noir's eyes filled with something like grief. He whispered, "All these years." Rosemary's face finally lost the smile completely. Not because she felt sorry, because her control was slipping. The pastor cleared his throat again, but this time he didn't rush. He stepped slightly to the side, giving space like this was not a show. "Brightness," he said kindly, "do you wish to continue the ceremony?" I looked at Valentine. He nodded once, eyes steady. I turned back to the room. "Yes," I said. "But first, I want to honor the truth." Then I faced Otto Hans. He looked like he was holding himself together by a thin thread. I took one small step closer. "Thank you for coming," I said. His eyes shone. He blinked slowly, still no tears falling, just emotion that stayed inside where it belonged. "Thank you for inviting me," he said. I turned to Noir. "And thank you," I told him, "for being there. You didn't steal my place. You filled a gap you didn't know was built on a lie." Noir's mouth trembled. He nodded once, hard. Rosemary sat between them like a person trapped in her own story. The church stayed quiet, like everyone understood. This was not revenge. This was the end of pretending. And that was when the next shift came. My mother-in-law, Kelly, stood up. Kelly walked to the aisle, her shoes clicking softly on the church floor. She didn't storm, she didn't accuse. She simply joined the truth. She faced the guests and spoke in a clear voice that carried without yelling. "I want everyone to understand something," Kelly said. Brightness did not plan a scene, she planned a clean start. Rosemary's eyes flicked to her, sharp. Kelly continued, "I have known Brightness for years. She is thoughtful, she is careful. If she is doing this today, it's because she tried every other way first." Rosemary's mouth opened, but no words came out. Kelly turned to me. "Do you want me to hold your bouquet?" she asked. It was such a simple question that it almost broke me. I handed it to her. My fingers didn't shake. Kelly held my flowers like they mattered, like I mattered. Then she looked at Otto Hans. "Sir," she said, "would you like to sit in the front row for the rest of the ceremony?" Otto Hans hesitated. He glanced at me. I nodded. He moved carefully, like he didn't want to offend anyone, and sat at the edge of the front pew, not pushing anyone, not taking space that wasn't offered. Rosemary stayed seated beside Noir, but now she looked smaller. And the wedding did not stop. It changed. The pastor returned to the ceremony. But everything sounded different now. When the music rose again, it felt less like performance and more like a real moment. Valentine turned toward me. His eyes were warm, steady. "I choose you," he said, voice low, "with your whole story, not just the parts that are easy." My throat tightened, but I did not cry. I simply breathed through it. I looked back at him. "I choose you," I said, "because you never asked me to shrink." The guests watched with a new kind of attention, not the attention that waits for drama. The attention that witnesses truth. Rosemary sat still, her face locked. But I could see her trying to hold her place like a queen refusing to step down even after the crown is gone. The pastor asked us to exchange rings. As Valentine slid the ring on my finger, my eyes caught Otto Hans watching. His mouth trembled once, like he was holding a smile back because he didn't feel he had the right. And then the pastor said the words, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The room stood. Applause rose. But it wasn't wild. It was careful, as if everyone understood something fragile had just been handled with steady hands. And right when it felt like the hardest part was over, Rosemary leaned toward Nuak and whispered something. Nuak stood up again, faster this time. And he said, "Rosemary, tell me right now, did you lie to me too?" The reception hall smelled like roast chicken and sweet rolls. White lights hung like stars from the ceiling beams. Valentine and I moved through tables and hugs, like we were walking through a dream that had sharp edges. People smiled at us, but their eyes kept sliding toward Rosemary's table. Rosemary sat straight, talking too loudly, laughing at nothing. A sure sign she was trying to stitch her control back together. Otto Hans sat with Kelly and a few of Valentine's relatives. He looked grateful just to be included. He didn't push into photos. He didn't demand attention. Nuak stayed quiet, staring at his plate like it might answer him. Then my aunt approached me near the drink table. Her face was pale. "Brightness," she whispered. "We need to talk." I nodded. "After the first dance." She swallowed. "No, now." Her voice was not dramatic. It was urgent, in a quiet way. I looked at Valentine. He read my face and nodded. I followed my aunt down a side hallway near the kitchen. The sounds of the reception faded behind us, and then she said the sentence that made my stomach drop. "Your mother didn't just hide him," she whispered. She went further. My aunt's hands shook as she pulled something from her purse. A small, worn envelope. She held it like it burned. "I kept this," she said, voice tight. "I told myself I was protecting you, but I was protecting Rosemary." She handed it to me. Inside was a photocopy of a court paper, not a full stack, just one page, a request for visitation rights, signed by Otto Hans, dated from when I was 3. My breath came out slow. "She told everyone he never tried," my aunt whispered. "But he did. He tried through the system. She made him look unstable. She made him look unsafe." I stared at the page. "Did Nuak know?" I asked. My aunt shook her head. "No, he never knew this part." I closed my eyes for 1 second. My wedding dress felt heavier now, like the lace was made of stone. But I stayed steady. "Thank you," I said. My aunt looked like she might cry, but she didn't. She just nodded, ashamed. Then she added, "There's something else. Someone else." My eyes opened. "Who?" She swallowed. "Your grandmother," she said. "Rosemary's mother. She's here, and she's been waiting to speak to you." I found my grandmother in a quiet room near the coat racks. She sat alone in a chair, hands folded, a small purse on her lap. Her hair was thin and white. Her eyes were sharp. When she saw me, she looked tired, like she had been carrying something for decades. "Brightness," she said softly. I sat across from her. I didn't hug her. I didn't accuse. I just waited. She nodded once, like she respected my silence. "I raised Rosemary," she said. "And I'm sorry." That sentence held more truth than a whole speech. "She didn't want to share you," my grandmother continued. "Not with him. Not with anyone." I said. "She told me he left." My grandmother's mouth tightened. "He didn't leave," she replied. "She pushed him out." I inhaled slowly, counting in my head like I always did when I needed control. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My grandmother looked down. "Because Rosemary is talented," she said carefully. "She knows how to punish people without raising her voice." I believed her. My grandmother reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. "This is from years ago," she said. "I kept it hidden. It's a voicemail backup. Rosemary didn't know I saved it." I stared at the tiny object in her hand. "What's on it?" I asked. My grandmother looked me in the eye. "His voice," she said, "begging to see you." That night, after guests started leaving and the hall grew quieter, Valentine and I sat in a small room behind the stage area. The flash drive rested on the table between us. Kelly was there too, standing near the door like a guard made of kindness. Otto Hans sat across the room, hands folded, waiting. He did not ask to hear it. He did not push. Valentine connected the drive to a laptop someone provided. A file opened. A date appeared. 20 years ago. Valentine pressed play. Otto Hans's voice filled the room. Young, shaky, desperate but polite. "Rosemary, please. I'm not asking for you. I'm asking for her. Just 1 hour. I'll meet anywhere. I'll bring someone with me. Please don't do this." My chest went tight. Another clip played. "I sent a birthday gift. Please don't send it back. I wrote her a letter. Please." Valentine's hand found mine. Otto Hans stared at the floor. His jaw clenched hard, but he didn't break. Kelly wiped one tear quickly and then straightened like she refused to fall apart. I paused the audio. The room stayed silent. Then I looked at Otto Hans and said, "I'm sorry you had to beg for something that should have been normal." He shook his head once, slow. "I'm just glad I'm not begging anymore," he said. That line hit like a quiet thunder. And then the door opened. Rosemary stepped in. Rosemary looked at all of us like we were actors in a play she didn't approve. Her expression was controlled, but her eyes were hard. "Are you enjoying this?" she asked me. Her voice was calm, which almost made it worse. I stood up slowly, smoothing the front of my dress like I had all the time in the world. "No," I said. "I'm understanding it." Rosemary's lips curled slightly. "He is manipulating you. He always did." Otto Hans lifted his head. He didn't answer the insult. He just said, "Rosemary, I'm not here to fight with you." Rosemary ignored him and focused on me. "Brightness, you're being ungrateful. Noach raised you." I nodded once. "Yes, he did, and you used that to erase someone else." Rosemary stepped closer. "I protected you," Kelly spoke, calm and sharp. "From what, Rosemary? A father who kept asking to be present?" Rosemary's eyes snapped to Kelly. "This is not your business." Kelly didn't move. "It became my business when it touched my son's marriage." Rosemary's breath changed again. Her control was slipping. So she tried a new approach. The oldest approach. She softened her face and said, "Brightness, if you loved me, you wouldn't do this." I looked at her steadily. "If you loved me," I replied, "you wouldn't have done it first." Rosemary went still. Then she said something that made the room freeze. "You don't know everything." Rosemary's voice stayed quiet, but it carried a warning. Valentine's posture shifted. Not aggressive, protective. I kept my tone soft. "Then tell me." Rosemary's eyes moved to Otto Hans. Her mouth tightened. "You want the truth?" she asked. I nodded once. Rosemary said, "Otto Hans wasn't erased because I felt like it. He was erased because I was afraid." Otto Hans blinked slowly. "Afraid of what?" Rosemary's laugh was small, cold. "Of losing." Noach stepped forward, voice rough. "Rosemary, stop talking in riddles." Rosemary glanced at him like he was a tool that had begun to question his job. Then she turned back to me. "There was a night," she said, "when you were a baby and something happened. My heart did not race. It sank. That felt worse." "What happened?" I asked. Rosemary's eyes stayed on mine. "I left you alone," she said, "for a minute, and you fell." The room went silent again. Otto Hans's face changed. Not anger, pain. Rosemary continued. "You hit your head, you cried, and I panicked. I thought someone would take you away from me." My skin went cold. Valentine whispered, "Brightness." I lifted my hand slightly to steady him. Rosemary's voice stayed calm, like she was reading from a script. "So I told a doctor you were clumsy. I told everyone you were fine. And when Otto Hans asked questions, real questions, I knew he would not let it go." Otto Hans's voice came out low. "You never told me." Rosemary stared at him. "Because it would make you a threat." Noach looked like he might fall, and I realized something important. This was not about romance. This was about control. And now the room needed one more truth. Because Rosemary's story still had a gap. So I asked, quietly, "Is that why you blocked his letters? Because you were afraid he would find out?" Rosemary didn't answer. Her silence was the answer. Noach's voice cracked, but he still did not cry. "So you made me the father," he said. "Not because you loved me, but because I was safe." Rosemary's head tilted. "Noach, don't be dramatic." He stared at her, eyes wide with a new kind of shock. "I gave my life to this family," he said. "And you used me like a cover." Rosemary's mouth tightened. "I gave you a family." Noach whispered, "You gave me a lie." That sentence landed like a door closing. Otto Hans stood slowly. He looked at Noach with a quiet respect. "I'm sorry," Otto Hans said. "I never wanted you to be hurt." Noach shook his head. "I didn't even know you existed." Otto Hans nodded. "That's the point." I watched them. Two men to by a story neither of them wrote. Then I turned to Rosemary. "I'm not here to punish you," I said. "I'm here to stop carrying your choices." Rosemary's eyes glinted. "You think you're better than me?" I answered honestly. "No, I think I'm free." And that was when Rosemary did something unexpected. She reached into her purse and pulled out her own folder. Rosemary held the folder like a shield. "I knew you'd do this," she said. "I knew you'd try to make me a villain." Her voice stayed steady, but her hands shook just a little. She opened it and pulled out a paper. This, she said, is a signed agreement. She held it up like a prize. Nuak frowned. What is that? Rosemary looked at me. Otto Hans signed a paper agreeing to stay away. Otto Hans's eyes widened. What? Rosemary's mouth curled. Yes, you did. You gave up. Otto Hans stepped forward, slow. I never signed that, he said. Rosemary's eyes locked on him. You did. And I have it. My chest stayed calm, but my mind moved fast, because there was only one way to handle this without chaos. I said, let me see it. Rosemary hesitated. Then she handed it to me with a tight smile, like she was sure she had finally won. I looked at the signature, and I knew instantly something was wrong. The handwriting didn't match the letters I had in my folder. Valentine leaned in, careful. Kelly stepped closer. Otto Hans watched like he could barely breathe. I looked up at Rosemary. Where did you get this? I asked. Rosemary's eyes flickered. From my files. I nodded slowly. Then I said the line that shifted everything again. This signature is not his. Rosemary's face froze. Nuak whispered, Rosemary? Kelly spoke, calm and firm. If that paper is fake, Rosemary, this gets serious. Rosemary snapped, it's not fake. Otto Hans's voice was quiet. I've never seen that in my life. I held the paper carefully, like it was fragile. Then a voice came from the doorway. I can confirm it's not his. We all turned. A man stood there in a simple suit with a tie that looked slightly too tight. He held a small briefcase. He looked nervous, but determined. I'm sorry, he said. I wasn't going to come in, but I can't let this go on. Rosemary's face went pale. Who are you? Nuak asked. The man swallowed. My name is Daniel. I used to work at the law office Rosemary used back then. Rosemary hissed, low. Get out. Daniel shook his head. I can't. He looked at me. Brightness, your grandmother contacted me last month. She asked me if I remembered anything. My grandmother's eyes lowered, like she had finally decided to stop being afraid. Daniel continued. I found old notes, old copies, and I remembered Rosemary asking for adjustments. Rosemary's voice turned sharp. You're lying. Daniel opened his briefcase and pulled out a thin file. I'm not, he said, and I brought the original office copy. The one that shows the signature was added later. The room went still again, but this time the silence felt like judgment. Not loud, certain, and right when it felt like the truth had fully arrived. Rosemary whispered, almost to herself, then you don't know the last part. Rosemary's eyes lifted to mine. Her voice was low, almost calm again, like she found a new place to stand. You think this is the whole lie, she said. I did not answer. I waited. Rosemary said, Otto Hans is your father. Yes. Otto Hans flinched slightly, like he didn't trust her tone. Rosemary continued, but the reason I erased him wasn't only fear. My stomach tightened. Valentine stepped closer to me. Rosemary said, it was also because of Kelly. Kelly's face changed. What? Rosemary's eyes stayed on her. You don't remember me, Kelly, but I remember you. Kelly blinked hard. I've never met you. Rosemary smiled once, small and bitter. We met, she said, years ago, before Valentine was even in high school, at a fundraiser. Kelly's jaw tightened. What does that have to do with anything? Rosemary's voice stayed quiet. It has to do with what you said about Otto Hans. Otto Hans frowned. What? Rosemary looked at him. You were there too. You didn't know who she was, but she knew who you were. Kelly's face went pale. Rosemary turned back to me. You want the last truth? She asked. Fine. Then she said it. Kelly helped label Otto Hans as unstable in our town. She repeated something she heard, and it spread, and I used it. The room felt smaller. Kelly whispered, that's not true. Rosemary tilted her head. Isn't it? And that was the moment I realized, even after losing, my mother was still trying to pull someone else down with her. So I asked one calm question. Do you have proof? Rosemary's smile faded, because she didn't. But she still had one final twist ready. She said, ask Otto Hans about the night you fell. And Otto Hans went very still. I turned to Otto Hans. His face looked like a man standing in front of a door he had avoided for decades. He spoke carefully, like each word needed permission. I didn't know you fell, he said. Not that night, not then. I waited, steady. He swallowed. But I found out later. My breath slowed. How? I asked. Otto Hans looked at Rosemary, then back to me. Because I tried to file for emergency custody after you had a hospital visit, he said. I was told you had a head injury. Rosemary's eyes flashed. See? Otto Hans continued, calm. I never got the full record. I asked for it. I was denied. He paused, then said, "But I did something else." Rosemary leaned forward like she expected to trap him. Otto Hans looked at me with honest shame. "I hired a private family advocate," he said. "Not to spy, to check if you were safe, to see if I should keep fighting or if I was making things worse." Rosemary's lips curled. "So you did spy?" Otto Hans shook his head. "No, and I never went near you." He took a breath. "But that advocate wrote a report," he said, "and I kept it." My heart thudded once, heavy. He reached into his inner jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document, old and worn. He held it out to me, not forcing it into my hands. "It includes a note," he said softly. "A note that says Rosemary wasn't alone that night." Rosemary's face went stiff. I unfolded the paper slowly, and there it was. A line that made my vision sharpen. A second adult present in home, male, unidentified. I looked up, eyes steady. "Who was there, Mom?" I asked. Rosemary's mouth opened. No sound came out. Nuak's voice came out like a whisper. "Rosemary, who was in the house?" Rosemary stared at the floor, and that's when the final twist arrived, because someone else answered. My grandmother spoke from the doorway. "It was your real reason," she said, voice tired. "It was your secret." Rosemary's shoulders dropped like she had been holding a heavy bag for decades. My grandmother continued. "That night, Rosemary wasn't alone." And then she said the name. Her boyfriend was there. Nuak's face shattered in slow motion. Valentine's hand tightened around mine. And I finally understood. My mother's lie had layers. Not to protect me, to protect herself. The next morning, the church was empty again. Just wood and light and silence. Valentine and I returned for one private moment before we left for our short honeymoon. No guests, no music, just us and the space where truth had finally been allowed to breathe. Otto Hans met us there, invited by me. Nuak came too, alone. His eyes looked older, not broken, changed. Kelly stood near the back, hands clasped, respectful. Rosemary did not come, not because I banned her, because she could not stand in a place where she didn't control the story. I walked to the front and turned to the small group. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I said quietly. "I'm here to build something honest." Nuak nodded once, slow. "I don't know who I am in this story," he admitted. I answered gently. "You are the man who showed up, and now you get to choose who you want to be, without lies." Otto Hans looked at me. "I don't want revenge," he said. "I just want time, whatever you're willing to give." I stepped closer. "You'll have it," I said. "Not because I'm fixing the past, but because I'm not repeating it." Valentine took my hand, and in that quiet church without an audience, I felt something new settle into my bones. Not anger, not victory. Freedom. I looked at the stained glass glowing with morning sun and realized the wedding wasn't the confrontation. It was the first day I stopped living inside someone else's version of me. And as we walked out together, husband, wife, and the truth finally in the open, I thought one clear sentence. This wasn't the day I exposed a lie. This was the day my life began.